Well, I think it's been 3 weeks since the last video, so about time I caught up with another one. It's been a fairly busy week in politics, as you are probably aware. We had the budget, which made a very good change from Brexit. I think most people have fed up with talking about Brexit. It was very nice this week just to be able to talk about the budget, and I think it was in many ways a fairly successful budget for Philip Hammond. But there are a couple of things there which I think are worth mentioning. So first of all, obviously, as a result of the budget, there's an extra £550 million coming to the Welsh Government, and I think it's now imperative that some of the financial support taken away from our local authorities is reinstated, because the additional £550 million is money that should be targeted where it's needed, and I think the challenges faced by local authorities now in Wales are quite significant. And unlike Alan Davies, the Labour Assembly member responsible for local government, I don't think that local authorities in Wales are saying that they are short of cash when that is not the case. They are facing real difficulties because of choices made by the Welsh Government, and those choices have been fairly harsh with Welsh Government, and as a result I think Conwy, for example, are facing a real difficulty. Either they maintain services or they have to increase council tax. So this additional £550 million coming as a result of this budget should certainly be allocated in part to support local authorities, I would argue. The other issue that came out of the budget was clearly the fact that we are significantly enhancing spending on health. Now, I am aware that health is a fully devolved issue, and I'm very pleased that the additional money going into health will also help the government in Wales, down in Cardiff, to also invest into our health service. But I want to just highlight a word of caution on health, to be perfectly frank with you. If you read the Red Book, which is the detail of the budget, there are some startling figures in there. And one of the most startling is the percentage of government spending which will be going on health by 2023-2024. And I'll just give you an idea as to how significant this is. Back in 2000, when the Labour Party were in government, we were spending 20% of government expenditure was going on health. So in other words, out of every £5 spent by the government, £1 went to the NHS. By 2023-24, this Conservative government will be allocating 38% of all government spending on the National Health Service. And I think that that is a figure which actually should be debated in the country, because we have to start asking ourselves to what extent are we willing to see the National Health Service become more or less half of all government expenditure. Because you have to bear in mind that we're hitting 38% of all government expenditure on the National Health Service by 2023-24, and that's before the baby boomer generation actually hits their 80s. So there's a big issue which we need to think about, and I'm not making any political points here about Cardiff or about London. This is an issue for us all as a country. Can we carry on supporting the National Health Service without any reform whatsoever? It's a question that you should be asking yourselves. It's certainly a question that politicians should be raising and should be attempting to answer. But in the short term, there's clearly a huge financial boost going into the National Health Service, and nobody can now deny that. Bringing things back to Aberconwy, can I thank everybody who's contacted the office on the X19. As yet, this has not been resolved, although I did have a meeting with the Chief Executive and the leader of Conwy Council this morning. I know that Llew Jones, under the guidance of Steve, their Managing Director, have tried their best to make the X19 a service that pays its way. Clearly that is not currently the case, so there will need to be further discussions, but I understand the frustration of people in the upper part of the Conwy Valley at losing the regular service of the X19. So certainly we're on the case. We're trying to make the case to Conwy as to why this should be supported. I can assure you that Llew Jones have worked really hard to try and ensure that this works, but we're currently at a situation where we need to try and get the local authority, the company and the community indeed to see how we can actually provide a better level of service in relation to the X19. Other things that are bubbling under the surface here in the office, the Deganwy crossing, ongoing, and thank you to everybody who's been contacting us in terms of the Deganwy crossing. What we still need are some photographic evidence highlighting the fact that there was a footpath being used at the crossing in question. The sooner we can get some photographic evidence, the better. So thank you for everybody who has been in contact with us, but if you do have any photographic evidence, we would love to hear from you. A couple of other things. I'd like to congratulate Bro Machno Community Council, which covers Cwm Penmachno and Penmachno, for winning the Rural Villages Award in Conwy. I think they're to be congratulated for that. I know that there's a great community in both Penmachno and Cwm, and so obviously this award is well merited. But I'd also like to extend my congratulations to other communities which were highly commended, which included Dolgarrog, Eglwys Bach and also Ysbytyfan. And I think knowing those communities as well as I do, it is remarkable that when you have a good community spirit, you also are able to deliver on those things which are important to the community. So my congratulations to those communities and to those community councils. And finally, I'd just like to remind everybody that we are approaching UK Parliament Week. Now, this is obviously something of importance to myself as an MP, but between the 12th and the 18th of November, it is UK Parliament Week. It's an opportunity for you to understand what's going on in Parliament, and I'd just like to remind people that any constituent who wants to come down to London, wants to have a look around the Houses of Parliament, wants to see the whole place before it falls down, because it's currently looking rather sad, covered in scaffolding, you're always very welcome to come along. My office will try and ensure that you are accommodated. There are fantastic tour guides available to give you a brief feeling for the history of the Houses of Parliament. And if you are down on a Wednesday, we do our very best to get you into PMQs as well. But the point I'm making is very simple. If you're a constituent, if you want to come down and see the House of Commons and see the Houses of Parliament, contact my office and they'll be delighted to help. Thank you.